So people are joining in. Hi guys. Hope you all are having fun by learning from all of these amazing artists. And it's been a very great ride throughout these 3 days. So I'm Nandini Singh. I'll be your host for the session. And I welcome you all to the third and final day of WTF 20, World's biggest 3-day digital conference for artists. As we speak, I'm pleased to announce that we have crossed more than 5,000 registrations for this conference. Thank you so much, guys, for your love. WTF is brought to you by Print Shop by Design Hill, which is one of the fastest growing creative print-on-demand marketplace. I would like to thank our associating partners, Illustrators Artists Club, Graphic Designers Club, Pattern Designers Club, Typography Designers Club, Logo Designers Club, and our online learning partner, Milan Art Institute. So let's welcome our keynote speaker of the day, who's founding owner of Milan Art Institute, has sold her work professionally for the last 25 years. Ellie has transformed the lives of hundreds of artists from around the world, helping them to find their voice and turn their passion for art into a profession. She's passionate about the role of an artist, as you have seen, and you have been listening to her since throughout all these sessions in contemporary culture and a leading voice of the current art renaissance. Today, she'll be speaking about why now is the best time to be alive as an artist. Please welcome Ellie. So one more thing before we start, if you guys have any questions, please put your questions in the questions tab and we'll take up from there. You'll receive a few polls in between the session. Please answer to that as well. Before we start the session, I would like to give a quick shout out to Print Shop by Design Hill and Milan Art Institute for being our online learning partner. So before we start, let's look at what Print Shop by Design Hill and WTF is all about. So without further delay, let's start the session. Ellie, over to you.
Okay, so I want to tell you why right now is the best time to be an artist. It truly is. What we're seeing right now is an art renaissance that's worldwide. It's happening all over the world. And really art, there's such an appetite for art. Everybody wants to own art, buy art, be surrounded by art. Art is on everything and everywhere. If you go to almost any city in the world or any town, you're going to see those sort of paint, sip and dip and wine and painting parties, and everybody wants to be an artist or at least create. There's this coloring book phase that craze that everybody's getting into, and buying coloring books and coloring, and there's more art instruction, online art schools. There's art everywhere. We're just really saturated everywhere in society by art and a hunger for art. So, and there's so many reasons why. We're going to go through them in the next few minutes as to why right now is the best time to be alive as an artist. But we're really living in unprecedented times of a convergence of many things. So we have this art renaissance that's happening, and we have the availability of art. It used to be that only the super rich could attain art, and it wasn't for the common person to even own art or have art. It was also sort of very difficult to be known as an artist or for your artwork to be seen. And now, with social media and modern branding tools, artists can get their voice out there, be heard, be known, be seen, and communicate directly with their collector. They don't have to have that stamp of approval of a gallery or an elitist art world critic or something. If their art touches somebody, if somebody's moved by your art, they'll buy it, and they can see it and connect with you right online. So there's so many things that are happening that are converging right now. There's going to be an art explosion, and so many more people are collecting art than ever before. Young people collect art. Everybody wants to buy art. So it's really, really exciting. Before we get into more, I just wanted to give you sort of a quick background on some of my experience of why I can, say this, because I've been selling my art for the last 25 years. And when I first started selling art, the internet didn't even exist. When I went to art school, we had to register for our classes the old-fashioned way by standing in line and filling out paperwork. There was no internet. There was no it didn't exist back then. Or at least I didn't know about it. Maybe it existed, but it wasn't mainstream. Nobody really had the internet. Schools didn't have it. So it used to be that, when I wanted to get into a gallery, I had to take pictures of artwork with slide film, go get it developed, wait 2 weeks for the slide to get developed, put it on a little light box and put the silver tape on it, put them in a slide envelope and send them off to a gallery and hope and wait that, I would be accepted. Now if you want to get into a gallery, you can, send a digital portfolio out to hundreds of galleries in a week. It's completely different. It used to be when I, did a painting, we'd wait for it to dry, then we'd bring it to the gallery. It'd sit on the gallery wall. Maybe a few hundred people would see it. Somebody would buy it. And in the course of the lifetime of that painting, just a few hundred people would see it. Now you can paint something, post it online, and in just days, thousands and thousands of people see it. So our ability as artists to connect with people and really be an influencer is very valid. And artists have always been the culture warriors, the culture shifters, the ones that moved culture forward, and that's our position. And so there's this sort of curse that's out there in the world that if you're an artist, you're going to starving artist curse. And it really is a lie, and it's an untruth, and it's kept a lot of people from their destiny because their parents worry for them. And as you're a young person, they say, oh, don't go into art. You're going to starve. And so a lot of people, they don't pursue art, and they pursue something else. And then they live in regret because they didn't pursue their destiny. They didn't really pursue their passion. And today, there is no reason for an artist to ever be poor or without money or without a business. There's so many tools that are out there for us. So there's, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So the other thing that is really different today is there's more art materials than ever before. You know, it used to just be you had access to oil, acrylic, you know, maybe some watercolor, gouache, but now there's, you know, urban markers and artist grade spray paint. I mean, that is a very new phenomenon. There's alcohol inks and marble inks and so many different kinds of pens and crayons and pastels. It's like every time I look, there's some sort of new art materials, new types of paints, iridescence, fluorescence, glow in the dark. There's so many innovations on what you can paint on. You can paint on metal, you can paint on plexiglass, you can put lights, there's so many things that you can do these days. Really, the sky's the limit as much as your creativity. And so that is very different. Art materials are more accessible than ever also. You can just jump on Amazon and be able to get a lot of these materials. It used to be without that, if you lived in a small town, you didn't have access to a lot of materials. And it's still harder for some people in some parts of the world, but generally speaking for everyone, it is a lot easier. But the main shift that I see that's happened, you know, so I've been at this for 25 years and I've seen a lot of changes, and I've sold art when times have been good, and I've sold art when times have been bad. And so I know how you have to innovate and sort of roll along with those things. And so the thing that amazes me now, and it's like, I don't even know exactly when this happened, but, you know, it used to be when I was younger, you had to have this import-export license, and if you wanted to sell something in another country, and you would have to go through all this bureaucratic government type stuff to be able to get your product in another market. And today, an artist from almost anywhere in the world, just through imagination and a few materials, can out of nothing create an image that moves people, that's powerful, take a picture of it, get it online, sell it that way. You can take a high quality picture of it, send it, you know, to a place like Design Hill or other companies, and in an instant, you know, have it gets printed on all kinds of different products, and then it's shipped right there from where it's printed all over the world. You didn't have inventory, you didn't have import, export, nothing. You don't even barely have to have, you know, you don't have to have high-tech licenses. You don't have to know a whole lot. You didn't ship it, you didn't package it, you didn't touch it. All you did is create it, and it sells over and over and over again. You can be as an artist today, you can be a CEO of your own multi-international business that exports your image, your voice, your heart all over the world. We work with this artist. She went to our school and she graduated from a program. Her name's Esther, and she lives in Uzhhorod, Ukraine. And for somebody in Ukraine, things aren't quite as easy as they are here in Georgia in the United States. It's a lot, life is a lot more difficult. It's harder to earn money. And honestly, she is the best-selling artist in her town in Uzhhorod. She makes a very good income. She's only 24 years old. She sells her artwork all over the world. She prints her artwork. She gets her artwork printed. She doesn't print them in Uzhhorod, Ukraine, and she doesn't ship them from there. They're printed in the United States. They're shipped, you know, all over the world, and she earns money doing this. So it's incredible what can happen today. And all of this is a very recent thing that sort of bypasses the borders and boundaries of various nations and their rules. You know, typically somebody who lives in Ukraine would not be able to, at 24 years old, just start a multi-international import-export business and sell their artwork all over the world just like that. But today you can, and nobody's going to stop her. Nobody can stop her. And that's the world we live in. She's able to be an influencer. She's able to post her artwork, post her thoughts, gather a following to her, influence people in the way that they perceive things, their perspective on things, the way they feel about things, all through the power of art. I mean, in my opinion, there's no better vocation, there's no better profession somebody can have, you know, than art. It's really the best career choice you can have. There's a lot of diversity to it. You know, you don't have to you know, kind of put all your eggs in one basket. If things aren't going so well over here, you can shift and pivot and do something over here. It's really, you know, endless. And what an artist really is today is an influencer, but unlike other influencers, I mean, take who's that lady? Kim Kardashian. Like, take one of the Kardashians, right? She has to, if she wants to sell a product, like, she can be an influencer, she can be a personality, but if she wants to sell a product, she's got to make something. Well, she has to get, you know, with a manufacturer, and she has to develop a product. She has to, you know, get a makeup line going, and that takes a lot of investment. It takes a lot of, you know, time and perfecting and getting everything just right. But as an artist, you already have it. It's right here in your hands. It's in your hands. It's with your brush and some paper and some paint. And in literally 20 minutes, you can produce something that somebody would want on a shirt, on a bag, on a pair of shoes, on apparel, anything, a print. I mean, that's incredible. It's absolutely incredible what artists have in their hands, and it's unique. Most people can't do that. I mean, even music, you can produce music, but can you print it on a t-shirt? Can you, you know, it's just can be heard. There's limitations to it. Imagery has no limitations. You can print it on anything. And so the fact that there's so many companies out there right now, and you know, companies like Design Hill that can produce all these things and take care of all that back end stuff that would take you years and years and thousands of dollars to develop and invest in, they do it. And you can just, you know, partner and create your own line of product. And how far you take it and how big it gets is totally up to you. It has to do with your brand and making your brand. Even if you just talk about branding, there's so much knowledge out there online that can teach you how to market, how to brand, how to digitally market and do all those things. At our school, you know, we just started taking our classes online just a couple years ago. We were, for 10 years, we were an on-site school where we only taught artists physically at our location. And 2 years ago, we brought it online so we could reach people all over the world. And in order to market it, in order to communicate what we had to people all over the world through social media, we had to learn marketing. We had to learn digital marketing. We had to learn branding. We had to learn how do you do these things, or how not branding, because we knew that, but how to take a brand and turn it into something that actually reaches people and communicates it. So there's so much information out there that is very accessible, that you can really learn, grab onto, and be able to you know, promote yourself and reach your audience. And that is, if you think about all the things that are converging at one time, where artwork is more accessible than ever, our tools to distribute it are better than ever, the materials that we have in our hands to produce art is better than ever, and the appetite and the desire for art is better than ever. You converge those, and it's an explosion. Even if you just look at online sales of how much art sells online these days versus you know, just even a few years ago, it's growing exponentially. And they say that a product will hit critical mass, but you know, at about 12%. As soon as it hits about 12% of the market. And last I checked, online art sales are at 8%. You know, and years ago it was 1% or something. It was very minimal. So you know, imagine what it's going to be like when online art sales hit 12, 15, 20%. It'll just, you want to be in position. You want to be in position by the time that happens. And I don't think we have too much more time before that critical mass does kick in. So you want to put yourself in a position where you've built your brand, you're in social media, you've got the habits of an artist where you're painting on a regular basis, you've got the work ethic in place, you have your look, you have your style, you've developed some products, and you're selling them. And when this really hits and gets to that point where there's such a draw on those materials, it's going to be incredible. One last thing here, before I imagine maybe we want to take a break or questions or something, is there's another trend that I see is that people are moving away from commercially made cookie cutter Target, Walmart type products. Something that is artistic, unique, something you haven't seen before is really what people want. They want something that an artist created, that an artist made. So if you had a choice to buy a t-shirt that was, a commercially made in a factory, generated from some cookie cutter concept, or you had a t-shirt that was artistically thought through and had something unique on it, and you were probably one of the very few people that actually had a t-shirt like that, which one would you rather have? Everybody wants that unique product these days, that do represent something. There's something behind that product. There's a whole line of artwork. There's the life of an artist. There's a story. There's a backstory. And yeah, you just have a t-shirt that represents it, but it's much deeper than just some commercially made t-shirt. So it's just, hopefully, you're convinced that really right now is the best time to be alive as an artist, because, it is. It's just incredible what's happened. So.
Yeah, so Ellie, it was so insightful actually, because when I got to know the topic and I also researched about it, I've framed so many questions for you, and you have been talking throughout, and you've answered all the questions which I prepared for. Like most of them, you took each and every part that we were thinking, like from the Renaissance area of 20th century to this modern era, like on social media, where you can actually do so many things on your own. You cannot limit yourself. So it was very insightful. So I have one question for you. It's 20th century saw quite a big range of artistic works. On one hand, we have the endorsers of Renaissance like Salvador Dali, and then we had artists like Peter Max, who got fame due to a lot of pop culture references in his art. So is it a direct indication that times are getting better now for every forte, like not just one forte of art?
You mean like, are you talking about like art movements that now you're not stuck in a movement, you can sort of create any type of art? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Because if I talk about digital art as well, any event that is happening, be it any social event as well, people are like so aware and so well updated with everything around them, and they are turning them into art. So it's really a great thing, and we can make a change into the society through art as well, and that's what we have been doing. Throughout.
That's a really great observation and thought. I love that. So if you look at art history, up until photography or the end of the 19th century, what you see is every movement in art is basically moving towards realism. It's towards mastery. Every art movement was about mastering light or mastering edges, mastering form, mastering composition. They were mastering something, a perspective. And every movement built upon the other greater mastery. And then by the time you get to the end of the 1900s, you see this, not 1900s, 1800s, you see realism and photography, and they kind of come at about the same time. And right then, right at the end of the 1800s, then you see art become deconstructed. And so then you have the Impressionists, and they're deconstructing light. You have the Cubists, they're deconstructing perspective. You have the Fauvists, they're deconstructing color. And slowly, artwork, every movement thereafter was about a deconstruction. And then in 1970, with the pinnacle of minimalism, you end up with a blank white canvas. And that was pretty much the end of the buildup of mastery, and then the deconstruction of that mastery, where you end up with a white canvas in 1970. And so then, of course, the art world at that point doesn't know what to do with itself, and you have postmodern, blah, blah, all these movements they keep making up to try to, put meaning behind what artists are doing. And basically, we're done with art for art's sake. We're done with movements in terms of the elements of art and mastery and what something looks like. And now art is free to just be about something. And art is basically a free-for-all of expression. You can paint in any style you want. You can paint any genre, any subject matter. The sky's the limit. Everything is completely open now. There's no stylistic movement to belong to. You can do your own thing. You can adapt and pull from this and that, and make a culmination of things. And so it's the most exciting time to be an artist, because you're free. You're not having to build up mastery or deconstruct mastery. We have all the tools in our hand. All of the artists that have gone before us have taught us everything we need to know. And now, with all the schools of thought, we can take that skill and we can do our own thing with it. And a big trend that I see is a return to beauty. The modern art world had so much sort of darkness and ugliness to it, and art for art's sake, and let's have shock value, and let's just throw a pile of animal blubber on the floor of a museum and call it art. And it was sort of like, who could outdo each other with the ugliest, most disturbing art? And now there's this appreciation for sublime beauty again. There's this desire that the market wants, because now the market is driving it, not elitists that are holding the art world captive with ugliness and darkness. Now it's the buyer, the consumer, that is dictating what kind of art will sell. And that's a fantastic thing, because what the buyer wants is something that's hopeful, beautiful, inspiring. They don't want something that's dark or subversive or ridiculous, like animal blubber. So it's a fascinating thing to be free of that, and to be able to communicate and work directly with the consumer, directly with the collector, and really beauty wins. Beauty wins. And that is what is going to bring our culture to a higher level. In the Renaissance, beauty was admired. Sublime beauty was something to be admired, and it brought culture higher. In modern art, that went away, and beauty was considered bourgeois and mundane, and something to not, you weren't sophisticated if you painted beauty. And that's done away with now, and beauty returns. So that's exciting for most artists, because most artists genuinely love beauty.
Yeah, that's really true. And you know what, I can't thank you enough for such insightful things, because no matter, I'm actually not an artist, but I do follow so many art channels and so many artists. So I keep on, you know, checking like how they are enacting to social to create social awareness on social things. So yeah, the things that you said, they are very pretty much true. So I have one question for you. I'm sure you must have seen that movie Dead Poets Society.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So and it's a very famous dialogue from that movie, that medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life, but poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we say life for. And it is true for art as well. So how do you intend to propagate this thought by your work?
I think you just, it comes from your heart. Like, if what you behold, you become. So what you value, what you find worthy, you're going to project, you're going to demonstrate, you'll manifest it. So I think if you have an appreciation for beauty, then beauty will naturally come out of you. You'll naturally see beauty. You will naturally desire to paint it. So I think that that's why it's important for artists to dwell on those things and not get because artists are very sensitive and sometimes reactionary, and they can get they're prone to become possibly more negative or depressed because of the sensitivity. So I think you have to watch for those things, and it all has to do with your thoughts. Whatever your thoughts sort of dwell on is what you'll begin to manifest and attract to yourself. So it starts with your thoughts. I believe. Somebody wrote a question here. Harry Patel, how do you think that this myth of the starving artist came into picture? Is it due to the romanticization of famous commercial figures like Van Gogh, who's the poster boy of such perceptions? And I think there is something that has been, Harry's right, romanticized about the starving artist. It's almost like this idea that if you're willing to starve for it, it must be super worthwhile. If you are so dedicated to your cause that you would even starve, you're a hero. And so it's romantic. But the way it's turned over the years is it's something that our parents use against us. It's something our aunts and our uncles, our grandmothers use against us to dissuade us from a life of purpose in art. And that's where it sort of goes awry. I definitely admire the artist who's so dedicated even to starvation for their cause. But I also think it's sort of untrue. I've personally not met a starving artist or know of one. All the artists that I know that work hard and are persistent and consistent make money and make a living selling their art. So it is a romanticized thought, and there's some reason for that romance. We're all romanced by that hero that is so dedicated. But I think that there's there's almost an agenda and a hidden agenda by some sort of dark hand out there to keep artists from their passion and from their destiny, because art is powerful. Art changes the world. It's proven over and over again. Anytime one nation oppresses another nation, the first thing they do is destroy the art. Iconoclasm is a constant, ongoing thing in history that causes one nation to overtake another. So oppression comes by starving the art, and freedom, liberty, and expression and a higher form of living come when art is elevated. So art is a weapon. Art is powerful. Art is something that will change the world. Artists are powerful. Artists will change the world. Artists have changed the world. So there's this sort of dark hand in place that tries to subvert artists and keep artists back from their destiny. because they're powerful and their art can change the world. So I would say if you're an artist listening and there's some negative voices that surround you that tell you you can't make it as an artist, that you will starve, that you won't make it, you'll be poor, that is not truth, and that you should shut them out and not listen and sort of rise above it and be the hero, be dedicated to your cause, and know that you will not starve. If you are dedicated and you work hard and you ignore those negative thoughts, you'll change the world with your art, and you'll make money while you do it.
So you answered it so wonderfully and so practically. I really liked it, and I'm sure everybody, Harry, would have got his answer. So there's there are two interesting questions in the question tab. So I would think we should start with Christopher is asking, do you think the new freedom in art now will kill the previous pretentious nature of art school and the art world as a whole?
I hope so. I think over time, yes. Because where freedom abounds, it's what we want. It's what the consumer wants. It's what artists want. And I think the internet has liberated us all. I think that it's this interesting thing that transcends culture and the rules of nations, and we can operate online. And even though the playing field isn't completely level, there are some countries where it is more difficult than other countries, obviously, but it's more level than it's ever been. It's more fair than it's ever been. There's more opportunity for all than there's ever been, and it's just going to get better. It's just only started. And so with that, the pretentiousness, elitism, even this idea that only talented people can be artists, or you're born with talent, you either got it or you don't, is the same thing. It is pretentious, elitist baloney. It's not true. There are people who have an aptitude for art that are born with some talent, and then there's some people that have to work a little harder at it. But honestly, everyone is an artist. Everyone has the potential to be an artist. And really, it comes through hard work. It comes through honing your skill and practice and dedication and commitment. And it doesn't matter if you're talented or not talented. And a great example of that is my husband and I. He was born with talent, for sure. He probably, if it was supported right, he would have probably been known as a prodigy. I mean, he is incredibly talented. At 2 years old, you could see he could draw in perspective at 2 years old. So he was incredibly talented, born that way. I was not. I was not born with any talent whatsoever. I didn't have an aptitude for it. I didn't have any special skill. I didn't even attempt painting or drawing until I was a teenager. But I wanted to do it. I had the passion to do it. I had the desire to do it. And I practiced and I practiced and I worked and I worked and I practiced until I got the skills. And really, we're all creative. We're all creative. Everyone is creative. Everyone has a right brain, and they can turn it on. They can develop it. I developed my right brain. I was sort of born with an aptitude for left brain thinking, and I grew in the area of right brain. So that contradicts the whole pretentious nature of art school, that it's for the superstars, the ones that have talent, and you just need to be discovered, and then you have it made, and you're either lucky or you're not lucky. And to me, that's completely untrue. It's hard work, and it's desire. You have to have the desire, and you have to have passion. And I think over time we're going to see this elitism, dissipate. And over the last 200 years, there's far less elitism in the world than there's ever been. So as things move along, everything becomes more level and even and fair. And so, yeah, I definitely think that, to answer that question, that it will go away.
Yeah, that was so true on so many levels, and the example that you gave of yours and your husband. So yeah, even if I suppose it's true, because I cannot believe that you were not born with the talent, because now if anybody will see at your artwork, they'll see you are one with talent. So of course, and as you said, like, the pretentious nature of elitism, and this will fade away, because I think, yeah, I have been seeing people are more aware now, not just artists, people, normal people who love art, who follow art, they are aware, like what is there, what is not there, what should be there, they are aware. So I think the whole idea of pretentiousness will, of course, will go away. So there's this one query of Abigail is, what advice would you give artists whose countries don't have license for them to sell their works online? Most times after registering and filling the online form to be a seller, your region isn't permitted, pops up. So yeah, you've answered this question, like we have to be, more learn digital marketing and all to be, online. But yeah, if we know that, we also get some queries like, our region is not supported, so how these people can,
Yeah.
get better? Yeah.
I think it's true that for sure some countries are freer than others in this area. And I don't have a ton of experience with a wide variety of countries, but we do work with students all over the world, and I am familiar with some of them. I've worked, and the amount of countries that are able to do it that you wouldn't think could do it is astounding. One of our students that was from Guatemala, she has a very successful art business and online art business, and she sells it, all over. And she's from Guatemala. She lives in Guatemala. And I gave examples through Ukraine, because I've traveled to Ukraine and I've worked with artists in Ukraine. And so I know that story very well. And that's a country that, technically speaking, it is against the rules. Their government would prohibit it if they knew. But she manages it. And she, I think one time when she was traveling outside of her country, she managed to get a bank account in a different country, and she got a PayPal account. And so from there, she's able to do it. So I don't think it's easy for some countries, but it's definitely possible. And over time, it will be possible, I believe, for everyone. It may take a few years, but that's the trend that we're seeing. And there's more and more companies and innovations in the financial sectors that are outside of banking systems that are beginning to work for people. And every year it gets better and better. I also can say that if you are, there's a question I saw in here about, would you say that limitations fosters creativity? And I think that question was meant more for creating artwork, but if we take it even in business, that is very true. Whenever we are limited and we have limitations, it's a cause to be more creative. So if you do live in a country where you can't develop a website-based e-commerce online business, you still have access to Instagram and other social media. You still have access to Facebook, and those things have shops. There's ways through messaging that you can sell artwork through messaging. There's wire transfers as far as money is concerned. I know Dimitra sold artwork to somebody in some Asian country. I can't remember what country it was. And they are not allowed to use PayPal. They're not allowed to use a lot of financial situations. And, she ended up doing a wire transfer from her bank. So there are ways, and if you are the one that is willing to explore all options and push all the boundaries and persevere, you'll be one of the very few in your country that actually do it. and you'll have sort of be further ahead than most people. Also, you know, I would say if you're in one of those countries, the world needs to hear your voice. So don't let that stop you. Don't let that, you know, and there's dealers and there's art representatives out there that work with artists in countries that they can't do business, and they have ways around it, you know, those dealers. So because of the internet, you can at least access people like that. You can at least contact. So I would say for that person, concentrate on your product. If you create a product that's truly excellent, that's unique, that you've worked hard at, that you have perfected, you've gotten the skills there, it's really something that will sell and that people will want. There will be ways to sell it for sure. So that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, so yeah, actually it sums it up. And also, you know, you mentioned like yeah, there are limitations in every country, every region. So yeah, some people have PayPal, and some people have access to Payoneer and all these payment channels. So that comes to a question which you also incorporated earlier. So see, actually the times have been changing, but the socio-cultural acceptance of art as a career still follows a curve with a higher acceptance in Western countries, but still art as a career, it is a tough call in Asian countries. So you have been in this industry, you have been you know, you have been an artist for like past 25 years, and so how long would you think this partial acceptance will heal?
I'm not sure I understood your question. You said in Asian countries?
Yeah, I mean, you know, people, you know, earlier people used to say you have to be a doctor, you have to be an engineer.
Oh, I
You
understand.
can't be an artist. You said that in previous conversation. So yeah, still there are some countries, not just Indian
Absolutely.
countries, in some remote countries, people still are like, you know, they are not very open towards being their children being an artist. So how long would you think this partial acceptance will heal?
You know, I think that comes up, that comes down to those brave heroes in those countries that are artists, that are destined to be artists, and their willingness to be pioneers. And it's always the ones who will pioneer something, who will forge ahead and sort of make a path so that others can come through. You know, I was just reading, you mentioned Asian countries, I was just reading the legend about the koi fish. And the story is something like the koi fish for 100 years swim up the waterfall, and you know, most of them die or get tired and fall down. But after 100 years, one makes it to the top, and then he's turned into a golden dragon, and it's a gate for others to make it. So that's sort of how things work. And maybe somebody watching, maybe somebody who sees this knows that, you know, they're one of those pioneers that will, you know, defy cultural standards and push through that and persevere and do it anyway and become the new standard, become the gate, become that golden gate for others to follow in their footsteps. So these things only take time when there aren't people that are willing to take that risk, who aren't willing to make that sacrifice. So maybe you're the one. Maybe you're the one that is supposed to pioneer and you know, be the hero.
So that was indeed very insightful, the whole session. Me not being a true art, I mean, like a proper, but you said everybody is an artist, you know, everybody.
Yeah, don't say that
has some
again.
art in themselves. Yeah. So you know, but that I was just, you know, listening to you. You have been so insightful, and I really love that. I'm sure people must be loving you. So I have one thing, and you said like it's being a best time to be an artist, because you know the social penetration, the penetration of social media around the world. You know, you can know things. So you must have been aware of that art basil banana basil art, that have been viral on social media, on the internet, and people were making memes, they were trolling it. So what's your take on that banana stuck, with a duct tape on the wall?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just another one of those sort of flash in the pans that doesn't have a lot of meat to it. And this time next year, nobody will remember it. So I think that for art to stick, for something to really stick, these days, there has to be something authentic behind it and genuine. And but also, even though I say that and I believe that, I don't know about the banana, but Banksy, for example, Banksy is sort of along the same lines, and I think he's there. It's a design to sort of push the envelope, and but he's not so much a artist with a product that people are buying and collecting, as much as he is just an influencer there to aggravate people or push boundaries or sort of change people's thinking or challenge ideas. And he definitely is challenging that elitist mentality that's in the art world in a very sort of inside out, upside down way. By Sotheby's selling one of his pieces that's basically an art shredder, and everyone's seeing that. So there's always a place for a banana and duct tape, I suppose, if it's really truly pushing the envelope and breaking status quo. Artists are at their heart are culture warriors and want to break status quo. They want to sort of redefine things, and there's always a great place for that. And I think social media is the ultimate platform for something like that.
True. Yeah, that's true. So, we are coming to the end of this session, and of course, WTF 20. And it's been a lovely journey for, I'm sure for the artist as well, for the speakers, but as a host and as a platform, Print Shop by Design Hill, and for all the hosts who has been hosting throughout these 3 days. We are also discussing, in the meanwhile, that it's been such a great ride, and people are texting, people are, tagging us on social media. So, before we end the session, let's just, on the real notes, let's just, I have one question. It's not a question, actually. It's a suggestion from your side. Like, we all are around the world, we all are quarantined right now. So how, as an artist and as a normal person who has some art in themselves, so if you could suggest something that we all can do at home every day as a schedule that, we can practice every day.
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's true, temporarily speaking, everybody is sort of stuck at home and quarantined. And, honestly, for an artist, that's heaven. That is the best time ever, because all of your responsibilities or normal patterns of life have sort of gone away, and you have a lot of time on your hands, at home. So actually, we haven't, I might even get in trouble for saying this, but we haven't actually officially announced it. We're going to announce it in a couple days, but we were moved by this here at Milan Art Institute, and we produced a product specifically for this time, and we're actually giving it away free. We are giving it away to 3,000 artists or 3,000 people. They don't even have to be artists. And the whole point of the product is it's an instructional course, a full-fledged instructional course on how to create a mixed media abstract just with the materials that are in your house, so that you wouldn't have to go out and buy anything. You wouldn't have to, it's things that you have on hand, and we're giving it away free because we want to awaken that artist that's within people that we know that's there. And so I would maybe in a couple days, because like I said, we haven't actually announced it yet, and I might get in trouble for even saying what I said, but because it's out of time, but you can go on our website or follow us on social media. In the next few days, you'll be able to see this product and the release of it. And like I said, we're giving it away to the first 3,000 people for a limited time, completely and totally free. So I would encourage people who are stuck at home right now and quarantined to still create. And fear and creativity cannot coexist. So when you create, you'll elevate your mind into a higher place, a place of possibilities, a place of beauty, a place of faith, a place of hope. And that's what the world needs right now, and that's what we need. So that's why we wanted to do this. That's why we want to give it away, and not actually sell it, because we want anybody to be able to have it and be able to create, and therefore resist fear, and put their mind in an elevated space of hope. So I would encourage everybody to create, even if you don't feel like you're, very creative.
That's a great piece of advice, and many congratulations, and big kudos to you that you are launching that creativity thing on your website. So I'll make sure that I'll also join. And so this brings us to the end of this thing and this session, and also WTF 20. And we are so overwhelmed by the registrations, by the love through social media. Guys, go follow Ellie Milan, Dimitra Milan, Milan Art Institute, and Jacob on social media, and also Print Shop Global and Design Hill, and keep tagging us. And thank you so much for joining us. And I'm sure, guys, we'll come up with WTF 2 in the next session, next season. And the quarantine thing, and I'm sure that we helped all the artists around the globe, because there is no possibility that people can go out right now. So we provided them so much to learn, so much knowledge in the field of art, through them just sitting at their home, through the comfort of their sofas and chairs. So it's great, and we would love to see you all in WTF 2, which we'll plan soon. And for more, guys, go subscribe the YouTube channel of ours for more webinars and AMAs and all the sessions of WTF 2. See you. Thank you so much, Ellie. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us.
See you. Bye.
Bye.